you grow up with a NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Well, hello. We are back, and this is the final, hopefully, knock on wood, shorter review episode filler to cover the fact that the last few weeks have been kind of crazy with communications issues, with scheduling, getting news stories put together, slow news weeks, some news weeks that aren't really focused on the kind of stuff we cover, as well as a bit of a drought on certain review items coming in or embargoes and things going on, Birdman being busy, on his own stuff, as well as still off recovering from surgery. And with me last minute now being, or no, not last minute, earlier last week, I have been figuring I was going to have to do a shorter show because I will be making sure that I sort of help my grandmother who has early dementia, just basically not babysitting, grandma sitting, making sure everything goes well, while my mom, who's her primary caregiver, is getting a bit of a break at the beginning of the week. So I'm doing a visit where I won't really have my setup to record, and I wanted to make sure I got things done early. So here's the long form intro to what should be the final, shorter, truncated episode before we're back. I've already spoken with Birdman. He's going to gather regular news stories this week. I'll be gathering the weird news, and next Monday we'll have the first news show in basically a month, and we're sort of getting back into the swing of things that in a few weeks after that, Birdman will be back. I will be doing 1 to 2 shows with him of the regular show, and then I'll be taking my 3 to 4 week break where I'm completely off other than just doing some back-end stuff, and then we'll be back in September with full programming running. But yeah, so this is only going to have 3 reviews in this little thing. So it's sort of the reviews that we would have had in the main show, but they're truncated. They're smaller ones. I've got about 4 or 5 I can pick from, maybe even more that I've been recording bits and pieces here and there. But there's going to be sort of a collection of Mill Creek stuff. There's going to be a few different companies have provided stuff, so we'll see what we throw in here, but there for sure is a roundup of some Mill Creek stuff that I wanted to talk about and get out that just didn't fit with the rest of the programming. So nothing from Birdman. He had stuff that wasn't going to make it for the deadline of me getting this ready when I won't be home. So you can expect a review or 2 from him on next week's show. And I'll talk at the end of the show here very briefly about programming and how we've got some hiatuses, some shuffles of some of the programming as we start to try and ration out our stuff till we can get back to recording full, schedule and have a bunch of stuff in the back burner ready to go. So I guess I'm going to have to send it off to myself with whatever I've decided to use for this first review.
Basically using geeks.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
It's been a while, but our friends at the Criterion Collection sent over a new 4K Blu-ray and Blu-ray combo of Okja. That OKJA, for anybody trying to figure out what I'm saying. That is the South Korean directed film that was a Netflix movie. And it's weird because I think this might be the first Netflix film that not only got a decent Blu-ray release or home video release, because they're notorious for not doing that or bungling their releases because they kind of want you just to keep subscribed to them, but this one having the Criterion collection, like it's kind of odd. I think the only other one to have had this treatment, and it's sort of the same but sort of not, it would be The Irishman got a release that was, you know, a high quality release like this too. But interestingly, I didn't know before a few months ago when this was, you know, up for solicitations for review copies, that this was going to get a home video release, let alone something this high quality. So basically $50 million big international production, Tilda Swinton, Paul Dano, Jake Gyllenhaal, Giancarlo Esposito, Lily Collins, amongst many other actors and South Korean actors together. It is, you know, voiced in both languages. If you don't know what it is, it's about a girl living in South Korea and a super pig, which is some genetically modified thing. There's stuff that goes on with the film. You know, it's got that bit of a message there. It's got a very unique style, owing itself to the director having a very different vision than what you maybe would see coming from an American or Canadian or Western director doing the same kind of movie. So, interestingly enough, for anybody who wants to know what other films this director has done, Snowpiercer, The Host, and most recently Parasite. So this is a bit different than the kind of pictures that he's done before. So how is the release itself? Because the movie was talked about a fair bit, I can tell you it's a good movie. It's not my favorite, but it is interesting. It has a good visual flair. It's the kind of movie that doesn't have to be like universally appreciated for you to know that, yes, you know, it's got a unique style and it's worth watching. So it is for sure. If you're somebody who's a fan of his work, obviously you're going to want to pick it up. It is one of the better, if not top tier looking transfers I've seen done for the 4K medium. So it's director approved and obviously supervised. 4K digital master. There's a Blu-ray that is pretty standard, but all the attention went into the creation of the 4K edition. So it has Dolby Vision, HDR. There is extra features created that are interviews with the creators and different producers and production design. There's video diaries, this sort of standard stuff. Nothing super crazy for a Criterion collection, but there's new English subtitle translations, better subtitles than what you would have seen on television. And then, of course, a little booklet with an essay. The big thing here is it better to watch here than it is to watch, let's say, on Netflix streaming it? And it is a resounding yes, because it's a better implementation of the color grading. Slightly better. Like you do get Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision watching it in the streaming format, but it isn't the same because the movie is, I think, roughly 16 or 17 gigabytes of data. That's sort of the maximum that Netflix allows for a feature film to stream. It's due to people's data limitations and what you can actually watch. And on here, it's filling up a 66 gig disc. It's about four-ish times the size and data rate. So there's a lot more detail that you're getting here. And if the worry was that might affect some of the visual effects shots, it doesn't. It still blends very well. You just get more crisp details and depth of field effects look better. And it's very well put together. It's a good transfer. So if you're looking for something that has a dark satirical take on environmentalism, this might be one of the better ones to look at. It's a good release. It's not something I would use as like a flagship Criterion release, but it's very solid and significantly better than watching it in its original streaming format.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Alrighty, it is time for a Mill Creek roundup of the rest of the releases that we received in the last month and a half or so that we weren't able to cover individually because they didn't fit the regular theme or the kind of programming that we usually do. We've got sort of two sections to this. We've got the collections that they've been putting out on DVD, as well as some multi-features and re-releases on Blu-ray of previous companies' titles, as well as a couple that I'll talk about briefly at the end of the rest of these that are tied more into those classic re-releases they're doing with maybe not as common or not as remembered films. And I'll get through these first parts here. So they've been putting out these Through the Decades collections recently. And the newest two sets, they're on DVD, are Through the Decades, the 2010s, as well as the 2000s. So the 2010 stuff is stuff that you're more likely, you've seen before or know of. So it's a set that comes with MacGruber, The American, The Dilemma, The Adjustment Bureau, Your Highness, Black Sea, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World, Safe House, Contraband, and The Thing. Now, these are all somehow tied in with Universal Pictures and some of the independents or small studios that are also owned or have some relation to Universal. And these are re-releases of previous films that were on DVD. Now that we're sort of entering the final stages of DVD production, and most people have a Blu-ray player that want to watch anything with physical media, but these are, honestly, these sets are the kind of things you pick up to keep at your grandparents' house or at the cottage, or something you can just throw in the last minute if you got a rainy day, and or if you're in Canada and you have a major network outage, internet outage like we had. It's the kind of thing you can throw on when Rogers or whatever other company is trying to fix their network. You just need something to watch because you're not connected. You can't even stream, and you don't want to use data on your phone from another service. That being said, there's some compression applied to these. For the most part, it's okay. I wouldn't watch these on a big screen above 50 inches or even a 43-inch TV or bigger. These are the kind of movies that are best left to watch on your laptop, if you've got a method for backing them up to watch them portably that way, or something to throw on like a kid's TV, the extra TV in a room, or again at the cottage or your grandparents or someplace where you can have a whole bunch of movies in a regular DVD case. It's a bit of a mixed bag with what's on here in that it's covering sci-fi, action, thriller, comedies, and everything. But it's a pretty good set overall. No special features. They strip everything out. But it does have all of the surround sound tracks that are the same as previous releases. Bit of compression on the videos. It works out better in these newer films because a lot of them are filmed digitally or they have no real film grain attached. Film grain is the bane of compression because of how randomized it is and the texture that it is. It leads to pixelation or blurriness or problems with compression. So these films do compress quite well, that meaning that they work quite well in the set, even though they are compressed down from what they would have been on an original release where they were on separate discs. The other set included here is Through the Decades, the 2000s. Now this one, you might have some stuff you haven't seen before, but there's Nurse Betty, One Night at McCool's, Spy Game, The Emperor's Club. That's probably the one that more people haven't seen. The Shape of Things, Cry Wolf, The Hitcher, State of Play, Baby Mama, 21 Grams. This is more hit or miss in the quality department. But that being said, you might be surprised with this. This, again, another set that pick it up with the other one. Keep it on the shelf for the rainy days. It's worth it. I think of the two, the 2010 set is probably a better set overall, but again, that's subjective. Exact same things, no special features, just the bare audio tracks as well as compressed video. Works okay, doesn't compress quite as well, so I did notice on my bigger screen some more issues with it, but it gets the job done. And these are, regardless of what the MSRP is, these are the sets that you're gonna find at Walmart and these places for like $5 on sale sometimes. And when you're paying like 50 cents a movie, it's pretty much fine as is. So those are decent. Those are like what I call the stocking stuffers, the ones that you again, you'd buy like 4 or 5 of these sets, bring them to your grandparents' house, leave them on a shelf, and pull them out when you need to. They also did a re-release of Universal Pictures' Assault on Precinct 13, which is the remake with Ethan Hawke and Lawrence Fishburne. That's a separate Blu-ray release, but again, a bargain release. No special features, just the surround track and the original aspect ratio. Single layer disc, but because it's basically the bare movie, and the movie itself is, what was it? Under 2 hours, an hour and 40, hour and 50 minutes long or so. It's a good movie. It's not a bad remake. The original, it's probably sacrilege for me saying, but I like the remake better than the original. It is, again, worth it if you find it cheap. It's not gonna, be your big collector's movie if you're a super fan, but it works. It's good, and it's a decent re-release. I prefer it when they do it like that, where it's, it is bare bones, but because of that, they're able to fill the full layer. So it's not like they're putting like 13 gigs or something on a 25 gig disc. And then the other set that they had that was a 2-in-1 was George Clooney collection, which is the American and Leatherheads. Now, kind of weird set in that you've got drama/dramedy and then spy thriller, but not bad. Again, bargain priced because it's stripped down, just having the surround tracks and the original aspect ratio video, but compresses quite well. No issues with it. They're pretty good movies from his catalog, so in that sense, if you haven't seen them, they might be worth picking up. But again, if you're a big collector, you probably want them individually, but these are good anyway. And now we're going to get to the final 2 releases that we hadn't had a chance to talk about previously, that were going to be parts initially of Loose Cannon episodes, but with all of our schedules, they didn't really work out to do that. So I'm going to briefly talk about them here. And we have a double feature set that's more of, again, obscure stuff, as well as a single feature release in the VHS Rewind series where they have that slipcover. That being Hearts and Souls, which is a Robert Downey Jr., Charles Grodin, Keira Sedgwick, Elizabeth Shue, Tom Sizemore, David Paymer, and Alfred Woodward movie. Now, this is one I had never even heard of before. But what's interesting about this is it's a romantic comedy, but it's, again, one I'd never heard of. I don't want to give too much away from the plot. It is worth watching. It is something that has been, I guess, underserved when it comes to what people remember of Robert Downey Jr., because this is, pre-arrest, pre-problems Robert Downey, and actually pre-problems with some of these other actors too. But it's interesting because this is one that I feel, until this point, probably skipped the DVD generation, or if it did, it had a very limited release because, again, I'd never even heard of it. But interestingly enough, unlike most other Mill Creek releases that they do in this format, they have new features. And it even prominently put it on the back of the slipcover box and on the actual box itself. There's new interviews with the director, Ron Underwood, the screenwriter, S.S. Wilson, and production designer, John Muto, which is something that they don't usually include unless they're doing a big scale release of some sort of genre picture. So it's actually pretty cool. That in itself makes it worth it. And I believe, don't quote me if I'm wrong, at least in North America, I think this is the first time the movie's been available in its original aspect ratio, the ultra wide. So worth picking up if you're a fan there. Plus, if you're collecting all these VHS, rewind stuff, it's worth it. The other set here is a Martin Short collection, which is Cross My Heart with Martin Short and Ed O'Toole, and Pure Luck, which is Martin Short and Danny Glover. Neither of these I had seen before. And I've not been the biggest Martin Short fan. I always thought he was a little too goofy. He's more tolerable to me now. It's just his style of comedy wasn't my thing. He was the least funny person to me personally on SCTV back in the day. But again, that's very subjective. So Pure Luck is a rated PG, and it's pretty much what you'd expect. Danny Glover, more of the straight guy. Martin Short doing his shtick and then wearing things like he has like a fat suit in the movie and different things. It's very much a product of 1991, if that makes any sense. Cross My Heart is romantic comedy, which is kind of weird for me to see him do that kind of movie. But again, it's 1987, it's serviceable. One thing of note, a lot of these films that they've re-released on Blu-ray or for the first time on Blu-ray, a lot of them were missing or didn't have subtitles. And I can say that this does have subtitles, and it's the specific subtitle type where it also has scene descriptions. So for somebody who is completely deaf or very hard of hearing, it is the subtitle type that's not just the script, it's the descriptions of, music playing, it'll have notes on the screen or walking in, scene descriptions, that sort of stuff. And what's interesting too is Cross My Heart has a 5.1 mastered soundtrack, so it must have had a DVD at some point or a Laserdisc release or something, because I don't think they would go back for the set and just do it that way. And then it's a stereo track for pure luck. So they're worth it. Both of these sets, these are the kind of things, the Heart and Souls and the Pure Luck Cross My Heart set that you might want to buy to fill in your background late 80s, early 90s collection, because we all know the big movies from that era, but there was so much right before corporations took over and started really being risk adverse in releasing films. There were a ton of these lower budget movies released in theaters that I'd never even heard of, and I've seen a lot of movies, so it might be worth picking up both of these. If I had to pick one, I think the Martin Short one is probably the best of this batch of everything I've been talking about. So keep an eye out. The kind of stuff you see on sale on Amazon a lot or Walmart, or you can obviously buy it from Mill Creek Direct if you really want to go that route. I hope they release more and more of these. We'll see what they have coming in the next month or so, and we'll try to see if there's anything very specific, like if there's some releases that I think are coming that I've got my eye on, that if we get them, we'll probably be doing a significantly larger discussion on. There's some big genre Blu-ray releases coming soon. It's been a bit of a lull in the summer, so that covers everything from Mill Creek.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
It's actually been quite some time since you probably heard this name. Our friends at Film Chest sent over a couple DVDs to look at, and I only got to part of this one here, and the next one we'll be talking about probably next week, and it'll be a bit of a surprise when that comes. But this first set is Dark Film Mysteries 3. It's a film noir collection. They released the first two a while back, and this third one had been pretty anticipated, and I got my chance to look at it. I'm recording this, actually, it's the one segment I'm recording remotely, and that I'm visiting my grandmother, helping with her as she's got early signs of dementia and stuff, so things are becoming more difficult, so she needs somebody to sort of watch her, and when my mom, who's her primary caregiver, isn't there, I can come over and basically give some relief time. And I thought, what better way to have fun with her, because she likes watching a lot of old TV. There is a channel, CHCH in Hamilton, that she can pick up with bunny ears still on, even on a modern television with a digital tuner. And a lot of times when I'm over, we park it on that channel, and she'll remember things, tell me stories. She'll watch TV. It'll be like a whole bunch of stuff like I Love Lucy and My Three Sons and all that sort of stuff they post all during the day. And so she'll watch 4 or 5 hours of that stuff while I make something to eat, and it's generally it's a good quality time. And I thought, what, she likes watching old movies when they do come on TV randomly. Maybe we'll watch some of these together, because it's all from her era. She was born in the 30s, so she would have grown up seeing bits and pieces of these. And what's interesting here was I was a little worried because, it says 15 more hours, of features. And I was like, there's not a lot of discs here. And included in the set are A Life at Stake, Whistle Stop, Jailbait, Great Guy, Shoot to Kill, The Limping Man, The Hoodlum, The Black Book, The Great Flammarion, The Inner Circle, Dark Mountain, Lady Gangster, Gambler's Choice. And I was like, as a lot of movies, is there going to be major compression problems? Uh-oh. And then I looked at the runtimes. A lot of these were from the era where your feature film would be an hour or sometimes less. So some of these films are under 60 minutes or slightly above 60 minutes, but they hover around that range, give or take 10, 15 minutes or so, because like stupid me, I'm like, oh yeah, these would have been probably, double features in theaters, or they would have been something where you'd have this 60-ish minute movie, and then before that, you might have a trailer for something, but you'd have a cartoon for 8 minutes. You then would maybe have a 12 or 15 minute short film. So you'd have a couple shorts beforehand that would bring it to that 90 minute or 100 minute runtime in the theater. And I was like, oh, that makes it easier. And also made it easier for us to watch, because it's not as much for her to follow, not as much. And for me, we could just sort of, watch one, and if we didn't care for one, move on to the next one. And it was like watching a 1 hour special on TV. So we ended up watching Jailbait. We watched The Black Book and Lady Gangster, and started into another one, but then we ended up taking a break. We're probably going to watch more later on this weekend. But so far, it's a pretty resounding success. There's obviously some aging with these prints. It's not like in perfect condition. They're better than a lot of other public domain releases. Film Chest is usually pretty good at remastering the best they can. Now, there's not going to be a ton of money in this remastering process as there would be if they're, if they found a master print or they're contracted out to do it for another company or something. But if you're looking at like these collections, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh man, it's going to be really compressed and look like crap or sound like crap or be really, really lazily put together. No, that's not how Film Chest does it. They generally put more effort in than a lot of the other companies that have rights to some of these films. So it's a pretty good set. It maximizes the amount of space on each disc. At this point, I don't know if they would do it, but I would give a suggestion that in the future, if they're putting out these multi-sets like this, where it's on 2 or 3 discs or more, and it's, all these movies one after another, you could probably get away with doing what some companies have done, mostly with anime, but some have done it with Westerns, and I think there was a Kung Fu set a company put out where it's standard def video on Blu-rays. So SD Blu-ray or SD-BD, you've seen it probably if you've ever seen one before. Now, what that is the Blu-ray format does support, like officially, 720 by 480 or 640 by 480 with bars at the sides to make it a 480p stream. It does support that with the MPEG 2 or with better the AVC or the MP4 format, if you're used to that on digital formats, which is significantly more efficient. So at the same physical size, as far as like the file size, you get almost double the compression and quality. So I've seen this before where a show or a TV show, they can put like 90 episodes on one single disc if it's all at standard def. If they don't have access or don't want to, or it's not financially feasible to do a full HD cut of it, most people now have Blu-ray players. Very few people only have a DVD player. Even the elderly people that this might be targeted towards, like my grandmother has had a Blu-ray player since 2010. She wasn't obviously an early adopter, but when her DVD player stopped working and she went to get a new one, 11, 12 years ago, she got like an $80 player and it still works fine. So you might in the future, that's my recommendation, like it's not truly going off topic. It's just, this looks fine as is, but I think in the future you could probably save money as a company going with something like putting all 15 or more, you could put 15 or even 20 movies on a single layer disc, because here you're getting 16 gigs on 2 discs, or you basically 8 gigs per disc, depending on how many discs you want to use. You could fit roughly 3 DVDs worth of movies on a single layer Blu-ray disc at the same resolution, but technically higher quality because it's using a better codec, and better, easier fast forwarding. You could do a simple menu and all that, but it's only one disc, and the people wouldn't have to change discs as much. I kind of wish more people would do that, because it's not false advertising or anything. You can say right on there, standard def this, here's how many movies we got on here, and you could sell it based on the value of it being on one disc. I've seen that done with some companies before, so maybe this is something they could look into for the future. That's my recommendation. If they wanted to maximize it, like they could potentially on a dual layer disc do a set, charge the same price as all 3 sets together, Dark Film Mysteries 1, 2, and 3 together on a single dual layer disc with every movie, and you just pick the movie based on a menu. You could actually get a fair amount of value in that, and I think collectors might pick it up, as well as somebody who wants it again for the cottage or for an elderly family member. Because think about this, the great advantage here is somebody who's elderly and maybe has mobility issues, they pop it in, they can watch a whole bunch of movies on one disc. They could leave the disc in the player for days at a time if they want. And if you got like 50 movies or 30 movies or something on one disc, they could leave that in their player for like a month and be super happy, not have to get up with their old bones and change it or anything. So the video and audio quality is better than expected for these. It's not obviously going to be AAA remastered Criterion collection type stuff, but it's better than some of these films. I've seen some of these in the past and seen transfer them. This is a better transfer. There's not a ton of like digital noise reduction applied to it, but they are slightly better quality copies, and it's handled a little better than a lot of other companies. So outside of my constructive criticism of maybe switching formats eventually for sets like these to future-proof it, this is a pretty good set, and it's worth picking up if you want to throw it on. Throw it in a player and leave it for a day, and you can have some stuff playing in the background, or throw a old movie party where you all dress up or something, and have cocktail drinks or something like that. Or if you're like me and you just want to spend time with your grandparent, who's she's in her late 80s and she's reminiscing about seeing movies like this and picking out, seeing her memory kick back in and picking out actors that she hasn't seen in 50 years. That kind of stuff is pretty fun, and those are the moments that make it worth having, sets like this to share.
Those magnificent bastards.
Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
That's going to do it for the show this week. You will probably have noticed that there wasn't an episode released of Earth vs. Soup as was originally intended. There probably won't be this week as well, as we're awfully close to releasing episode 100, and I'm putting it on a bit of a break, maybe for another week or so I can get the time when I'm back from, all the craziness that's happening here schedule-wise, to get new assets done for either artwork or at least the audio for it, and get the website prepped to have its own category from episode 100 moving forward, and then go through the next 50 episodes that I have in the back burner to edit for it. So that's going to be a fun project to tackle, probably when I'm off, not doing anything else for the next, in August. I'll have that as my little project in the back burner to get all those shows prepped and ready, which will take us right until a year later into the summer. So what else do we have going? Well, I've got another review that I've got to look at the release for, of a show that I have seen on DVD before and owned on before, but I want to see how this compares to it. And that's Film Chest has released The Invisible Man, the TV show, the original one. And I originally had that in 2 different season sets. I forget the company. I'll have to look it up. And the quality was okay. And I want to see how they've done when they've gotten their hands on it now and have released it. So that'll be probably on next week's show when we're back to doing a regular news show. And outside of that, I might only have 1 review. I know Michael has 1 or 2 that he'll be throwing in, so that'll be our 3 reviews for next week. And then as well, I think, unless something changes, fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that stuff, I will have, on the day of release, the Live Alive game from Square Enix and published by Nintendo on the Nintendo Switch. That game comes out on the 22nd. I believe if I get a review copy, it's probably going to be day of. So if that's the case, I will not have time to beat it in 2 days and have it out on the show that week. That will probably follow on the week of the 30th, 31st actually, which will be right around the time that if we get Xenoblade Chronicles, we'll be getting it around that time. So our reviews will be roughly 1 week behind because those are going to be fairly meaty games to beat, and getting them released, those are games that release on Fridays. If they released on Tuesdays or something, then I would be able to actually probably get them done for the following week. But no, it's going to be about a week behind for those. So I've cleared my slate gaming-wise for that. So I have no other real games on the go other than maybe some back catalog stuff that I wanted to work on just for me. As far as movies and stuff go, we're waiting on some stuff to come in. Birdman's got a lot of stuff in he's got a review box of stuff that he goes through, and he'll be doing a lot of that. And then we will see where we go from there. I'm unsure of what else we've got coming because some things we've requested months in advance, right? And you don't hear about it or forget about it. And a lot of games have been pushed into the fall, and some of the games that are coming are from studios that we don't traditionally get review copies from, that aren't as review copy friendly. So they might be just games we have to get for ourselves, or we have to wait to cover it later on. And some things are pushed into next year. So that's pretty much it on the gaming front. I'm going to be filled with JRPGs for the next several weeks until I go on to my hiatus. And as far as movies go, there's some stuff that's going to come in. I know that there's going to be new Mill Creek stuff. We will see. I'm looking at it right now. Stuff that was requested. Criterion, some stuff that can be months ahead, so we're not sure exactly what's coming yet. Pulling the curtain back a little bit with Criterion, they send out solicitations and say, hey, if you're interested in a review copy, let us know, and you'll let them know, let's say in June. And that might not be a release till September or October. And sometimes you forget what you asked for. So we'll see what comes from them. There might be some stuff showing up. There might be more Asmodee stuff coming for the accessible games that they're developing that we're probably going to be doing an interview. I think it's locked in, but, knock on wood, if it doesn't happen, don't shoot me. And that's going to be the first week of September. But as far as what we've got coming from them, we're not really sure what their line is going to be, but that stuff we'll probably cover it because it's interesting that anything that's like bringing accessible gaming to people, like when it comes to physical games, is interesting because not a lot of companies have done that before or are looking to do it on the same scale. As far as Mill Creek goes, we just covered what was left of the Mill Creek box that I had, because when they send them, they send basically everything at once. It's like a month or month and a half worth of stuff. As far as what's coming from them that I sort of alluded to, I'm not sure if we're gonna cover them, but or what's gonna come in, but they're releasing Basketball. I don't know if it had a Blu-ray release before, but it'll be worth checking that out. As well as Sequest DSV is getting the complete series on Blu-ray, and that's including the third season, which previously was never released on Blu-ray in North America. The first season had one. I don't remember if the second season got a Blu-ray release, but I had imported a copy from Australia that was region free, and that cost me like $200 and something to get it. It has an MSRP of $85 US, so basically half of what I paid. So for my set, so I'm going to be able to compare it to the release I bought a year or two ago. If we get a review copy of it, it'll be interesting. And if we get the review copy, then my previous region free set from Australia will go over to Michael, and he'll have that to put on his shelf of, my shelf is basically space shows, and that's my underwater space show. So we'll see how that works, because I'll be in a fairly unique situation in that not a lot of people in North America, especially Canada, would have imported that. And I'm in the unique situation where I had the original DVDs that were some of the earlier DVD releases of that, like of TV shows. I can compare it to that. I can compare it, direct comparison to my my current set, and we'll see how their Blu-rays work. How do they stack up for that price point? And we'll see. Again, it all depends if they actually show up. Hopefully they do. And that's pretty much it I know it's a shorter show, but some slightly longer reviews, but that was because we had a fair amount of releases to cover in that short amount of time. So I am going to, because this is a remotely recorded segment, I'm going to try to edit this together and have it released today, which is Monday. Usually this stuff is all recorded ahead of time, but again, I'm visiting family, so it was a little more hard to get that done. And we'll be back to a sort of a regular schedule where we have everything prepped a day or two before the release, and we'll have some news and weird news to talk about, and it'll be really nice to get back into the swing of things next week. So thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with weird sporadic schedules the last month or so. But it's the summer and it can get kind of weird that way. So thanks again for listening, and I'll be back next week.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.